Good morning from Big Sky Country. I'm Stacy, owner of Montana Used Bricks, and today I'm going to do a food for thought video. I was reading through the Facebook group, the Bricklink Worldwide Buyers and Sellers group, and there was one that caught my eye, and I thought I would talk about it because I tried to do a little bit of research, and I'm going to look at this from a different angle and hopefully get you guys thinking about when you're posting online or on the forums about a specific buyer. Maybe do a little bit of research before you just comment, because I was ready to comment as well without really looking into it a little bit further. And maybe we need to, as sellers, stay out of some of this stuff. And I'll explain that more. But first I want to read the original post that was posted. And I'm not going to put in the person's name that posted it or the buyer that he's referring to, because he called this buyer out by name and a bunch of people already went and blocked him and blocked his store without having the whole story. But I'll get into that in more detail in just a minute. But here's the original post. I sell new products from the PAB wall. For those of you that don't know, that's pick a brick at the Lego store. Took me quite a while to figure that out. Or parting out sets, and this buyer has advised me that he inspects all pieces under a microscope and he resells. I don't lie about the quality of my products. I have no reason to. Even so, I believe in customer service. I offered a return with full refund or a partial refund equivalent to the cost of used pieces as per his claim. He has gone a bit off the wall with threats and long, nonsensical emails about wanting a partial refund even after I offered it. He stated he cannot use any of the pieces because they have marks from the studs on the inside, but wants to be paid for his time inspecting if he returns them. He's just going bonkers. He has a lot of positive feedback, but this is just my experience the last few days. For those interested, he lodged a partial refund case through PayPal, and I have just given it to him to make my life easier. Immediately when I read this, I was like, wow, that guy is bonkers. He's nuts. What is going on there? And especially looking at every piece under a microscope, that's a lot of time and effort. I don't know who has that kind of time if they're going to be reselling the parts, but to each his own. I read that and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's going to be a heated topic, especially since he called out this buyer by name. And this was a follow-up to that original one. I've deleted my original post, but threats are continuing. This is now anonymous, so you don't know who the buyer is, but anyone want to let me know how to make sure he doesn't follow through and post negative feedback out of pure spite. For those who didn't see my last post, I sell majority of new Lego only from PAB walls or set part outs. He inspects everything under a microscope and requested a partial refund, which was given immediately. I thought I was done with you. Can't tell me that you don't know that you sold me dirty, dusty Lego. You need to remove your post on Facebook or I will leave the worst negative feedback on your store. I was courteous by not leaving you on negative feedback. I will let everybody know on Bricklink what kind of seller you are. Of course, this is going to incite sellers across the board, because you don't threaten a seller. You don't threaten with retaliatory feedback. That's just something you don't do. It's also against Bricklink rules. And there was a lot of comments about that. You know, let Bricklink know that this is what's going on. And I agree totally. He should have never written that. There's no reason to. If he was not happy with the parts from the get-go, he should have asked for a refund, a full refund or a partial refund, and he should have left a neutral or negative feedback. That's what you do. You don't go back and forth with threatening emails or being unreasonable or that kind of thing. You just move on, basically. And a lot of people were like, go ahead and let him leave the negative feedback and then you respond to it so that people know what kind of buyer and seller he is. Here's where I want to kind of turn things a little bit. I am also a buyer, as I know a lot of you are. Now, if you were in this buyer's position where you were expecting new parts and you did not get what you consider new parts, I'm not saying that you look at the parts up under a microscope. God forbid if anybody should do that with my used parts, because there's times I've looked at them under a microscope and you can see every little scratch, ding, and mark on them. But here's the thing. It's like we all have had orders where there's been one or two parts that we've kind of questioned whether or not they're new or they're used parts, and they're used way beyond what we would expect or what we would sell in our stores. And how you handle that as a buyer reflects how you are as a seller, and vice versa. I was trying to think, if this was me and I got these parts, how would I have reacted if I thought that they were supposed to be something else than what was advertised? I would definitely contact the seller. I would let them know what the issue was, and I would let them know what type of refund I was looking for. I had not quite a similar experience, but I had an experience on eBay, and I'm not sure if I've talked about this before or not, and if I have, I apologize. But I had ordered a box on eBay where they said that it was all Lego. They made it quite clear in the description it was all Lego. That's what you were getting. I bought this box of Lego. I did not get all Lego. What I got was maybe 3/4 Lego, and then a lot of non-Lego parts and a bunch of broken toy parts. And I had everything sorted out. I had weighed everything. I had asked for a partial refund on the parts that were not Lego. I wasn't asking for a full refund, just partial refund, because I was paying for Lego. I wasn't paying for Mega Block. When I contacted the seller, she became irate. She was rude. She was nasty. She said that resellers were going to be the downfall of eBay, which got me to thinking, it's like, she's reselling. I don't understand that statement. I explained, what I wanted, and she said, I don't give refunds, and it says it right in the description. I called eBay, and the couple of times I've called eBay, they have the best customer service. I called eBay, I talked to a gentleman there, and he said, oh yeah, if she did not send you what was advertised, then she has to give you a refund. So she wanted it returned, which she had to pay for. She pre-accused me of taking out the parts that I wanted and not sending everything back, even before I had boxed up everything. But I was super sweet the entire time through this transaction, even though she was very rude, very condescending. The more she got rude, the nicer I got in my emails, because I did not want to stoop to her level. What I did is, when I sent it back, I boxed up all the Lego. I put all the Mega Block in a bag. I put all the broken toys in a bag. I clearly marked them so she would know. I put everything in the box. I took the box directly to the post office. When they weighed it and put the sticker on it, I took several pictures so there wouldn't be any question later on that I had cheated or taken parts out, and I shipped it back to her, and I got my refund. I was very nice through this whole process. That doesn't mean that I wasn't angry. I was so angry. I was so mad, and it stressed me out for days. But I knew that I had to go above that. I would have never thought to call her out directly. I would have never thought to say, hey, everybody watch out for this seller, because maybe this seller didn't know what they were doing, and maybe they were having a bad day, and maybe they really needed this money. And they were upset that they had to not only pay me the refund, but they also had to pay for the shipping to get the parts back. So they were out quite a bit of money. If she had just paid me the partial refund, she could have still made a profit. But she fought it, and she lost. And this is kind of the same thing, because these two people are having this argument, and if one of them would have just backed off and said, okay, this is how I'm going to handle it, and let the other one just be crazy, that would be enough. And I'm not saying that the seller is crazy, but I'm saying that posting on a forum like Facebook and putting this buyer's name out there, because he's also a seller, is wrong in my opinion, because this is between the two of you. If you had this issue, that's fine. Post about the actual issue. Do not post somebody's name. And I've said this in other videos. When I do my Lego hauls and they don't turn out quite the way I think they should, a lot of times I won't mention what the store is. I don't want to have that negativity directed toward their store, because again, they could have been having a bad day. Maybe they were a new seller. Maybe they had somebody helping them that didn't really know what they were doing. You don't know what's going on. And I really think we need to take the time as seller and buyers to take a step back and not try to ruin somebody because you aren't happy with what you got. Now, like I said, I did a little bit of research because he did call this seller out by name, and the original post was actually reposted in the comments, which is how I got it. Otherwise, I would have never seen the original. But somebody had taken a snapshot so they could go out and block this buyer so that they couldn't come and buy at their store. I would have never done that either, reposted it, or I would have left the buyer's name off of it if I did. But I'm glad they did, because it gives a little bit more insight to what's going on here. And we're kind of only getting mainly one side of it because we're hearing from the seller. We see what the buyer wrote, but again, he could have been having a bad day and he was called out on Facebook. I would be pissed too. That being said, this seller going back and now posting what this guy is writing is just escalating it. And when I did my research, the buyer who looks at these parts under a microscope has a store. It's fairly successful. They have over 3,700 feedback. He's got a few neutral. He's got about 13 neutral, a couple of complaints. I go back and I look to see if they've started correcting those neutral, like if it was slow or if they're saying the shipping is too high or that kind of thing. I go back to see if maybe there's not as many recent ones as there was when they first opened their store, because there is a huge learning curve. And that was a lot of mine. I have 8 neutral, and people might think, oh, that's a bad store. She's got 8 neutral. But it's because I was learning. I didn't know what I was doing. And every time I got a neutral, it was like, that's exactly what it was. It was giving me feedback on what I needed to fix. So I did a little bit of research on that. It still sounds like kind of overcomes some of the problems. The thing that people mainly complain about with him is that the shipping cost is too high. And he does a little bit of the back and forth with the buyer on the feedback, like, well, you didn't read my store terms and conditions. And to me, that kind of rubs me the wrong way too, but that's a whole different video. The other thing is, I tried to see, because he did clearly state in his response to the seller calling him out on Facebook, he clearly states that I was courteous by not leaving you a negative feedback. I went and looked to see if he left a neutral feedback, and I couldn't find any recently as a buyer. So I went to look to see just what feedback he has left recently as a buyer, and there's very few. It doesn't sound like he buys a whole lot. And he may have removed his feedback at this point. If he did leave a neutral or a positive, it's very possible that he went and removed that because he's not happy with the way things are going. But if he had left his feedback, there's only 3 that it could be during this time period of this back and forth. And all 3 of those stores have less than 100 feedback, which means these are new sellers. I'm not saying that this guy is a new seller, the one that's posting on Facebook, because he used his real name on Facebook, and I'm not sure how to look that up in Bricklink. I was trying to find something that might be common, couldn't do it. So it's possible, like I said, that the feedback was removed. But if it's one of these 3 stores that the buyer did leave feedback for, they're new stores. This could very well be an error on the side of the seller. This is why I wanted to do this video, is because we don't know the whole story. We don't know what kind of parts he's selling. He's saying he's selling new pick-a-brick. He's parting out sets. He's not saying he's parting out new sets. He's saying he's parting out sets. So we don't know if he's selling all new parts or if he's selling some used parts in there as well. It's very possible that the buyer here was in the right. Now, looking them under a microscope, to me, yeah, that's a little crazy. I generally just look at them and see if they're faded or really scratched. That would be noticeable when I'm going to do a build, because when I buy, I'm buying for me, not for my inventory, which is a whole other thing. It's like, why are you buying to resell in your store? That there are going to be people that are going to be a lot more picky, and especially me as a used seller, that's always my fear, is that I sell used parts. I have in my store terms, they're used parts. There's going to be fading, there's going to be some scratching. There's always going to be those parts that I'm just not going to catch if it's a lot of like bricks or something in bulk, that I might miss one or two that are more faded or scratched up than others. But a lot of times I do a double check before I ship them, and if they're damaged enough that I notice them right away, I will pull them and just tell the buyer that those are missing. Sorry, can I give you a refund or store credit? We don't have the full story here. And I just wanted, like I said, I'm been thinking about this for a day and a half, and I thought, you know what, if I'm thinking about this still this much later, that maybe it's something that as sellers and buyers we need to think about. And there's a lot to this. Like I said, should people call people out in the forums and on Facebook and other groups like that, or should that not be allowed because you're hurting somebody who might be in the right? We don't know. And how quickly we react, because like I said, I was ready to get in the comments and start commenting as well, but then I kind of took a step back and thought about it from the buyer's point of view, how upset I would be if my name was thrown out there. It's just something to think about, just food for thought on this wonderful Sunday morning. I am going to end it there because I will continue to ramble for the next 10 to 15 minutes if I don't stop it now. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch my videos. As always, thank you for commenting, taking a time to hit that thumbs up button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.